I'm Henrik Roager, and I'm associate professor at Department of Nutrition, Exercise and Sports at University of Copenhagen. So we are based in the heart of Copenhagen.
It's beautiful. Can I ask you how you got involved in this field?
So during my studies, I was very interested in microbiology. And when I learned that microbes don't necessarily have to be harmful or bad for us, and that there were actually some beneficial guys in our gut, that drew my attention because it gave a new perspective. And then I was lucky to get involved in research centered around the gut microbes, and in particular in relation to nutrition.
Did you ever have any issues with these subjects yourself in your family life or with yourself or your kids?
So I think during my 20s, I also had some issues with bloating sometimes. So I at least have experienced the problems of pain to some extent. I don't suffer from that anymore, but yes, I know what it feels like. And I think later when I got my first child, I was also experiencing the stressful period of being a parent with a child which has problems with regular bowel movements in terms of being slightly constipated and all the worries that goes into that. So I think that also inspired me in my own research to really try to question what is it in the gut that regulates bowel habits, and why is it that some have, for example, in early life, why do some breastfed infants have 7 diapers a day, where others have 1 every second week, maybe? And if you ask a doctor, that's just normal variation.
And if I asked you, what would you say? What are some of the reasons you've found that contribute to that huge difference in behavior in babies?
So I think basically we don't know much about it, but it is probably a complex interplay between which microbes are there, what's in the breast milk, and how do the muscles in their intestine of the child, how do they develop, and how does the whole contraction of their intestine works. And it's really a black box.
Fascinating, but you're hopefully shedding a little light on the subject.
Yeah, we're trying to get a better understanding, definitely.
Well, and you kind of have a lab with 3 participants now. Tell us a little bit about your family and how your work has affected your parenting.
So I think I try not to make it affect too much, in the sense that I try not to bring work too much home. But I think indirectly, it's probably affecting how we live as a family in terms of, I'm very aware of the importance of having a diverse diet, having my children to eat as many vegetables and fruits as possible. But as any other parent, it's not easy always, right? But at least I know that's quite important with a diverse diet, and also getting the fruits and vegetables from an early age as well.
And is that because of fiber?
Yeah, they contain fibers, but also vitamins. And I also think just the complexity of the food actually is important for stimulating the intestine, to basically train their intestine to make food move through the system. And I think if we don't get the complex food to basically train our muscles in the intestine, I fear that could be detrimental.
Well, so you bring up an interesting point that the ultra-processed foods have been in the news a lot, at least in the United States. And would you say that one of the problems with those and the high amount of consumption of those is that they're typically very low fiber, and they're typically so processed that we're losing a lot, even if we're adding... Actually, let me ask 2 questions. First one is that one of the problems with ultra-processed foods is that they are low fiber and have other things added that aren't actually good for us?
Yeah, so I think generally speaking, yes, many ultra-processed foods are low in dietary fiber, and they are also, just in the composition, very easily dissolve and digested. So I fear that it's not stimulating our intestinal system and the muscles there. So I'm basically fearing that we're missing out the physical stimulation of the intestine, which I think is important. So that might be one problem, but at this point in time, it's my hypothesis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it seems like a reasonable hypothesis. In the U.S., there's still a stigma about talking about bowel habits, pooping, constipation, and diarrhea. The things that bowel habits and what goes wrong with those. Is that the case in Denmark as well? It's not something you really can talk about.
Yeah, I think generally it's not something that we talk about a lot, bowel habits. But if you start talking about it, then everyone can relate to it. And it is super important for well-being and for just normal life. And you only realize that at the moment it doesn't work anymore. Until that, you just take it for granted, which is what it should be. But I think there is quite a big proportion of the population that actually suffer from problems with the gastrointestinal system one way or the other. And I think we need to talk about that.
Agreed. And do you have a sense of the Danish statistics on that? People who have issues with bowel problems?
Well, I think it's estimated that 1 out of 5 from time to time suffer from, symptoms, gastrointestinal related symptoms, which is not a chronic disease or anything, but it's just something that bothers them, basically.
That's actually not so bad, in that what I understand to be the US statistics are that it's 1 in 3 people who have a diagnosis but are just having discomfort somehow around this area. So it does seem like an important thing to talk about. And I mean, again, because of your expertise in this area, do you have friends or family members saying, Henrik, I'm having constipation. What can I do? I don't know what's going on. What are the questions you would ask or the suggestions you might offer for that?
So I think whenever I get to talk about this, there are always people coming to me afterwards, sort of just in privacy, asking, so what in theory, if you had these kind of issues, what could one do? And I mean, my advice is not so different from what else others would be able to find on the internet or whatever. It's physical activity, drinking enough water, eating a diverse diet rich in fiber. That's typically what you need to stimulate your intestine. But I think a lot of people underestimate the importance of the diet, but also just physical activity. Many of us are not moving enough, and that doesn't help our food to travel through the system either. So I think it's probably some of these very simple but yet difficult advices to follow. Yeah.
So true. And I also understand with the prevalence of social media, people also get confused easily, because sometimes the guideline is like, actually, too much water is bad for you. If you're thirsty, drink a cup or 2 a day. And other people are saying, actually, it's 8 cups. And other people are saying, that's way too low. If you're a person of a certain age, you should be drinking 10 to 12 cups. Do you have thoughts on these dramatically different recommendations about something so simple as water consumption?
I mean, I don't go into specifics about how much water to drink. I mean, it's really to drink enough water, and that probably varies from individual to individual. I think regularity in how we live, when we eat, when we sleep, is also supporting bowel function, right? So we all know what happens when we travel to the other side of the planet, or if we go to bed very late at night, suddenly sleeping at a different hour, it all sort of affects our GI system. So I think just regularity, sleep, not being stressed are super important as well, right? So it's much more about balance and eating a proper diet, drinking enough water, having a rhythm in day, which will support your bowel habits.
What's your favorite vegetable dish?
That's a good question. I love broccoli. I love it because it's green and pretty, and you can cook it in many different ways. Yeah.
What's one of the favorite ways you prepare it?
Fry it a bit with some nice, what's called spices. Basically. Yeah.
Delicious. So now turning to a slightly different subject. You and I spoke a little bit about menopause and changes in the microbiome. Can you talk to me about constipation and bowel issues? Can you tell me a little bit about thoughts, observations about menopause, changes in the microbiome, and bowel issues?
Yeah, I think it's estimated that 1 out of 3 women that are postmenopause, that they actually suffer from constipation. So I think problems with regular bowel habits is really, really common in this group of women. And my best understanding is basically that it relates to the fluctuation in hormones and a new normality that has to establish. And probably these women are also sometimes adapting and changing their lifestyle for worse or for better. But that could also sort of have implications for how their bowel system works. And yes, indeed, that has also been linked to changes in the microbiome. But whether the microbiome is sort of what is driving the changes in microbiome, whether it's changes in bowel habits or it's the other way around, that changes in the microbiome drives changes in bowel habit, probably it's a combination of both. But it is a stage in life where many changes their habits, and sometimes that also have implications for bowel habits. And not only habits, so of course biology is also changing.
Well, and what you said does seem like the most likely, that it's not that our gut bugs are changing and so it's making us constipated, is that the gut bugs are changing and actually are. Actually, help me work through this. I was trying to think through this, and so we know in perimenopause the hormone levels are fluctuating, as you say, but then over that, whatever, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Overall, and I'm pointing to me because it's happened to me, our estrogen levels are dropping significantly. And I've heard it again suggested that it's so this lower estrogen level is contributing to this issue with constipation. And is the lower estrogen level contributing to the constipation because the microbes need the estrogen, or is it the microbes are making the estrogen? Like, I'm a little, and so one of the questions I had is someone looked at how, here's a group of menopausal women, and here's how their bowel habits change. Well, there's this big hormonal change happening. And now more and more people, including in Denmark, are using hormone therapy. Are they still having issues with constipation? Like, does hormone therapy?
To be honest, I really don't know. I think it's largely understudied, basically. I think we need to know more. And just the aspect of bowel habits in this period of life, I mean, I haven't seen detailed studies on that, how it changes over the course of the years and what the underlying biology is. I mean, I think there's a lot of good ideas that it's the lower levels of estrogen that maybe gives a lower stimulation of the motility, the contractions in the intestine, and that could translate into higher risk of being constipated. But basically, why and how to deal with it and how to avoid it, I mean, I haven't seen much about it.
That's a great point. And actually, one of the purposes of the film is to uncover the incredibly significant numbers of research that has not been done to basic biology of menopause. Could you tell me that, to the best of your knowledge, there are not studies on these particular issues?
So to the best of my knowledge, understanding how bowel habits changes during menopause hasn't been studied. And given that 1 out of 3 suffer from constipation, I think this is a really critical question to ask.
Moving away from menopause for a moment, one of the questions I like to ask is, what are some key unsolved questions in your areas of research? What are things you think, like, this is like a big picture thing that, wow, this would be like a life's goal for me to establish or solve this question in nutrition, exercise, microbiome, whatever?
So I think one of the key questions I would like to understand, I mean, it sounds simple, but that's basically, how do microbes affect our health? I mean, what are there small molecules that microbes produce that can actually affect our health? And when it comes to our research, one of the questions are there specific molecules that can affect bowel habits, the time it takes food to travel through the system, so gut motility, basically. So we're researching that both in the context of early life, so infants, where we try to figure out, are there certain molecules that microbes produce that could actually affect gut motility in early life. We are investigating in adults what happens if you alleviate constipation like bowel habits. How does that change the microbiome and the metabolism, the activity of the microbes, basically. And then we also have research on women, where we try to understand what happens when we alleviate constipation in the women. Does that affect their mental well-being, but also cognition and their gut-brain signaling? So we're doing research where we try to recruit women that tend to be slightly constipated. They're not chronic constipated, but they tend to be constipated. And then we try to alleviate their constipation. And then we try to see, does that change their bowel habits? And do we also see a change in their cognitive function and ability to solve tasks? We measure electrical signaling from the gut. We also put electrodes on the brain, on the head, to measure the signaling between the gut and the brain to see if their bowel habits could somehow be a way to affect the brain. So our hypothesis is basically that if you're constipated and the GI tract is not functioning properly, then that could potentially affect our brain and cognitive capacity, basically.
Why in women? Thank you. Women are so understudied in general, but why in women specifically?
I think we wanted to study the gut brain, and that's super complicated. And we wanted to narrow the age range. And we thought that the group of women between 45 and 65 would be super interested in this and also be a group that is not super well studied. And then we thought, okay, we could involve both gender, but we could also just keep it to women. And we decided to just keep it to women. And it's quite interesting because the first question people then start to ask, why only women? Well, why not? So, yeah.
So are you enrolling people in this now?
Yeah.
Are you asking about their menopause status?
Yeah, we are.
And are you measuring their hormone levels as well?
So far, no, we're not measuring hormone levels, but maybe that could be done.
And you're measuring cognitive capacity, as in, like, can I do these tasks more efficiently?
Yeah, so like memory, attention, speed of decision, these kind of things.
And brain fog, what we call brain fog, is a classic symptom of menopause, that is distressing to women. Are you asking about psychological symptoms like anxiety and depression?
Yeah, we have questionnaires about anxiety and depression.
How long is the study? How long are you going to monitor women?
So the women are going through 2 periods of 4 weeks duration, and we measure before and after each intervention. In one intervention, they get fermented milk, and the other one, they get non-fermented milk. And then we assess before and after each intervention a lot of measures related to the gut and then a lot of measures related to the brain. And because it's an intervention study, we're looking for effects between the 2 interventions. But it's true, we could also look at differences in their responses according to whether they are pre or post menopause, for example. So there's definitely also questions that could be pursued in that direction.
In the first intervention, how much fermented milk are they given per day?
And they're giving a 300 gram or milliliter per day.
In one serving?
They can decide.
And so however they want to take it.
Exactly.
And why did you select that as opposed to kimchi or like all the different... So was it the specific lactobacilli?
So there are some reports suggesting that fermented milk has beneficial effects on bowel habits. So that's basically why we chose to focus on that, and also just to make it easy, feasible to do. And in addition to the intervention, which is where we only include those that are slightly constipated, we actually also have a sort of what we call a reference group. So women, same age group, same in every sort of way, but with regular bowel habits. So the idea is also to compare gut-brain measurements between those that are slightly constipated with those that have regular bowel movements, just to see a baseline. Are these women different, and are there differences in their diet, or is it lifestyle? What is it that could potentially explain their differences in bowel habits?
And is fermented milk yogurt or kefir? Or
yeah, it's kind of a yogurt, it's a special Danish fermented milk called A38. So it's a acidified milk, basically.
May I buy that?
A little special for the Nordic.
Can I buy it in the supermarket?
Yeah, you can.
And I'm looking for milk that says A38.
Yeah.
Because it's like a higher proportion of microbes?
It's just produced slightly different. And then
so they're Lyme bacteria? Like what is this?
It's a little more sour. It's a little more acid.
So a little more acid.
I think in the global world, it's not equally liked everywhere, because otherwhere people like it more to be more sweet. This is not as sweet. It's a little more sour, basically.
Super. And what's the second intervention?
That's just normal milk.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's
So
a
there's
crossover. So
so
you compare.
and I can be in the study if I don't eat it. I've never eaten dairy before, or like
Oh, we recruit
I
people
already
that are normally eating dairy, but then we control their
the
amount of dairy.
consumption.
Yeah.
So there, I can't go. I like this sour milk, so I'm actually going to drink 3 times a day, or
Could. No, but no. In the study,
not
you
in
have
the
to.
right, right,
Then
right.
we control it. Yeah.
And when will you have preliminary results?
The trial is ending by the end of 25. So early 26, we expect to have the first results. But I can say that I already saw interesting results between the women with constipation, with those with regular bowel habits, that suggests that there might be some key food groups in their diet that could maybe be related to the constipation.
Key food groups.
No.
So it's not just the addition of the A38 milk.
No, it's just at the baseline, not the intervention part. We haven't looked at that, but just when we compare.
What if you just give us a taste of what we might see, understanding it's all, speculative now.
I'm not sure I'm going to say it at this point in time.
Okay. So one of the things you saw in the film is that we talk about fecal transplants. My understanding is that while we know that fecal transplants will cure C. difficile, it's very effective, much more effective than any other treatment. People have tried to commercialize poop transplants, and my understanding is that to date, no one has actually identified what works in a fecal transplant. Specifically, a study that was done out of the Netherlands, someone did fecal transplants using fecal water, which was taking actually the live microbes out of the poop, and that the fecal water was effective against C. difficile. So it's like, oh, we are always thinking it's the microbes. So people started thinking about phages, that we're taking all the microbes out and it's still working, what is there? It's not magic. So what is the effective? And do you have any other thoughts on what it could be, since there's something potent? And presumably there's also many different answers to what is in our poop that can be curative or that can be illness producing. So phages are an important component, and other observations are.
So I think when it comes to FMT and Clostridium difficile, I think many different there could be many ways to basically outcompete this bacteria. So I guess in the end of the day, you just need something that can go in and disturb that ecosystem to basically disrupt it. And either it can be other bacteria, it could also be phages, or it could be small molecules that somehow change the dynamic or the host response. So I think for that particular disease, that's pretty simple, but I don't think it's simple with FMT and other conditions.
You know what I realized? I don't really understand what a small molecule is.
So small molecules are basically just the small substances that bacteria produce or utilize for their own growth. So it's basically their energy source. So you can put in energy to the microbes in terms of small molecules, and some of these molecules would be energy for the microbes. Other molecules will be kind of antibiotics. They will kill off other bacteria. And you can also have molecules that are kind of signaling molecules that can either signal to our body cells, or to other microbes. So I don't know how to explain it. It's like throwing in a lot of signaling molecules and see what happens.
So they're like chemical compounds.
The chemical compounds.
Because a lot of times we're talking about fibers and feeding my muscle, fibers feeding my microbes that are. So explain to me small molecules, microbes, and phages.
So if I eat a carrot, then our own digestive enzymes can only do part of the work, meaning that a lot of the fiber material in the carrot will end up in the colon. But there, luckily, we have a lot of different microbes that have a capacity to digest a carrot even further. And once the microbes digest the carrot fibers, they produce small molecules, so chemical compounds that can either work as energy substrates for other microbes, or they can even feed our own intestinal cells. So whatever kind of food material that ends up in the colon will basically be converted from fibers into small molecules to the benefit of the bacteria and to us.
Are microbes, is that the only way we get small molecules in our bodies?
Well, small molecules are basically the way the body communicates. So every single cell in our body is producing and utilizing small molecules all the time. So that's a fundamental part of our metabolism. But we can sort of affect that metabolism by eating foods that can be converted into small molecules. So basically, our digestion is all about taking big particles, food particles, digesting into small molecules. And our own host enzymes can do that, but our microbes can do even more because they have a bigger capacity.
Henrik, what do you do to relax?
I love running. So for running is for me my mental free space. That's where I go when I need no demands, no work, no family. It's just me and nature, and then I just relax. That's where all the good ideas come, and that's where I solve the whole world's problems sometimes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.